Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the LiveU Sports Show. My name is Chris Perry, coming to you live from my home studio here in Westboro, Massachusetts. We have a great lineup for you this evening here on the Sports Show. I am super stoked. But before we get into that and dive in and talk all things sports, let's check in with our director in charge down in our control room. James, good evening. How are you doing today? How was your summer solstice?
Chris, thank you so much. Summer solstice was good. I actually played golf, was able to get out on the course. First sports action I've had this year, and I got some sunburn from it, so I guess I'm paying for that.
I can tell that. I had an opportunity this weekend to spend a little time on the boat, went swimming, not a professional swimmer, folks, but James, glad to hear you got out on the golf course. That's awesome. So for our main story tonight, we head west to a race that is literally in the middle of nowhere. Joining me now is Jason Markham, all the way from Malibu, California, of MadMedia to talk about the Mint 400. Good evening, Jason. Welcome to the Sports Show.
Hey, thanks for having me here.
So, Jason, can you tell me a bit about the Mint 400? Because I know many of our viewers may be unfamiliar with it despite its prestigious stature among the racing community.
Yeah, it's I put it up there with the Kentucky Derby. Iconic events, like I said, the Kentucky Derby, the Indianapolis 500 for off-road culture. It's the Daytona 500, Kentucky, everything like that. And it's right up there with the Baja 1000. It's the toughest race in North America. And yeah, it's been going over 50 years. And it's a really special event. And for people that aren't gearheads, anybody that ever read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Hunter Thompson was hired by Sports Illustrated to go cover that race. And what evolved or devolved after that on that road trip is what was covered in that book. And so it's a icon in pop culture, but also to any gearhead or off-road racer, it's definitely on the bucket list.
So what does the Mint 400 represent to you personally as well as the racing community? Because this is a really cool event that you guys work with.
Yeah, it's everybody here at MadMedia. Matt Martelli, Josh Martelli, the owners of MadMedia, Lonnie Peralta, who is lead producer there as well. And we're all racers, and we're all passionate. And it's really special to me because my dad raced it multiple times, starting in 69, 70, 71. So I grew up with the Jim Beam decanter in a trophy case and always seen that as a kid and thought it was super cool. And so I grew up riding motos, racing, and then transitioned to desert in the late 90s. And, you know, anybody that's into desert racing is Baja 500, the Mint 400, and the Baja 1000 are, if you haven't done it, then you haven't done it yet. And so it's cool to have the background, the family background, racing it, but then also to get the opportunity the last 10 years to still race it, but then also whether it's in the helicopter shooting aerials with Josh Martelli or on the ground. And then with what happened going forward, it's finally the convergence where live stream is taken off. And we did the first live stream 3 years ago. And we've grown it incrementally each year. But the last 10 years, whether it's a Red Bull Signature Series show or on another sports network, we've always done a cinematic documentary show. And so like I said, 3 years ago, Matt and Josh decided to invest in doing the live stream. It was still early for a lot of the sponsors. They'd been around the sport a long time, and they were still too latched on to wanting to say it's on a network versus going with live stream and how that frees you up. They didn't really realize that. And so it took a big investment on MadMedia's side to basically go out of pocket the first 2 years. And once they were able to show the analytics back to the sponsors, and so that they could go sell it to their bosses, like, hey, if we go here, you know, on a sports network or whatever, we're going to max out at, let's say, 300,000 views. But those are Nielsen views. Those aren't analytic clicks like what you get on a live stream. And so what we were able to do with each year bringing up the live stream overall quality, and then they were able to go back and show it to the sponsors, that this year was really where everybody was all in. And so that's been a big needle driver in the sport. With all the sponsors, everybody's on the same page.
So Jason, there's very clearly a lot of technology that goes into producing a race like this. I mean, you can see it in the vehicles. These are incredible machines that you guys are covering. But it's so much of this race course is remote, right? So how did you guys do this the first couple of years, and then what changed in terms of new technology that you introduced in this year, the 2020 Mint 400?
Over the history of the sport, like I said, it goes back 50 years. It's been covered so many different ways, whether it's shooting 16 mil footage and cutting it together, or I think it's been on Wild Over Sports. I can't remember. But really the last 20 plus years, it's just been basic video coverage, and the people that were producing the event, the broadcast weren't racers. So it was kind of, what's the path of least resistance? We'll put a camera here. So it's at a road crossing, and just what its easiest access. But the biggest thing as a racer is there's so much stuff that goes on, so much stuff that you see, so much stuff that you experience that your friends, family, and then everybody at home doesn't usually get to see. And so all you can do is sit around, and talk about it. And so, like I said, we're all racers, but we also geek out on the technology on the production side. So how do we merge the two? And so we were all, everybody, like I said, Lonnie, Matt, Josh, 99% of the guys on the crew, we were all very early adopters of Red, because now we're not doing Betacam or Digibeta or HD. Now we're getting to play with cinematic tools that traditionally we couldn't play with because of the budget. And so, with Jim Gennard and what he did with Red and being a disruptor, that's what we've tried to do, and what we continue to do is how we kind of stock our quiver with different assets. That's where we really tried to raise the bar and capture the beauty. And so if you've seen some of that B-roll, just what's going on with how gnarly these vehicles are, and it's stuff you just can't capture if it's just a traditional the way they shoot motorsports. And so it's bringing that passion. Is, if you don't have the passion, you're not going to be on our crew. It's simple as that you get cycled out really fast.
So this is truly incredible footage. I mean, you can see all of the time and care that you guys put into making the cinematic pieces. This is a huge race course, though, right? What is it, like 106 miles?
It's somewhere between 106 and 116 miles this year, and it's at state line. The California-Nevada state line at Prim is where our base camp is. That's where the start finish is. That's where all the pits, the main pit is. And then out on course, we have 2 remote pits, but it's one big loop. Like I said, 106 to 116, gnarliest terrain you can imagine. But the problem is in capturing it, and this has always been trying to capture it live or do a live stream, is we've got 4,500 foot peaks that even if you have any kind of point-to-point RF, they're going to get in the way of. And, unless you're hiring a Sikorsky helicopter to airdrop relay stations at the top of these peaks, there's no way to do the connectivity. And that's been a challenge. And it's been a challenge that we really went after hard the last 3 years to bring in new technology. And specifically LiveU is what we started with 3 years ago, but really invested heavy in this year, and we were able to cover parts of the course that have never been seen live before. You don't want to bore the viewer with having to keep going back to the booth forever. The booth and all the talent there is awesome, and what they can offer as far as telling the story, but you got to give the viewer the action. And so that's where this year was a total game changer. Our numbers 2019 over 2020 went up threefold. And that's directly a result of us being able to basically have live camera coverage in at least every 25 miles of the course, as far as hard cameras. But the other thing is having the two helicopters with 600s in them, LU 600s with gimbals, and the areas that they could work. It really blew minds to people that have been around this as long as I have. Like, no one's ever seen coverage like that before in such a logistically challenging environment.
So we did pull together a little graphic here, Jason, that I want to walk our viewers through to try and explain all of the various coverage that you guys did. Now let's break this down because there's a lot going on here. The race course is 30 miles south of Las Vegas, Nevada, here on State Line. It stretches 106 miles through the desert and mountains, and it has 3 LU 600s placed along the race course. There's also an LU 300 that was placed inside of a trophy truck traveling almost 100 miles an hour through the desert. There were also 2 helicopters with LU 600s plus extenders covering difficult areas of the course that couldn't have been reached otherwise with fixed locations. Down in the pit, there was also an LU 600. Now, all of those feeds came back to the on-site production facility to 2 LiveU servers located inside of the production truck. That's where they had the crew and the production switcher in the field right by the race course. So this is a very unique application. A lot of our viewers of the sports show, as well as a lot of our LiveU customers, are very familiar with how to use our technology in environments where you've got a remote studio, but not necessarily an on-site production facility, and using LiveU as an RF replacement. So, truly an incredible use of our technology to be able to supplement the race coverage for sure, Jason.
Yeah, LiveU is definitely the quarterback of connectivity on this one, because the race is a 2-day event. We have motorcycles and limited classes run the day before the big day, and that's when we have the unlimited cars race. So that's 2 days of racing. But what's even more dynamic about the Mint 400 is we do let me back it up. So where State Line is, that's about 35 miles south of Vegas. Where we qualify is 35 miles north of Vegas. And we qualify earlier in the week, and then after we have qualifying, then we go to Fremont Street and have tech and contingency and all that. And so what we did on this is it took a lot to kind of unpack this and figure out how we were going to do it. So we agreed to keep base camp and the production trailer at State Line, but we were able to go essentially 100 miles away, shoot qualifying, pull that feed back down at the production trailer and cut qualifying, and then also do the same thing for everything that we did, all the activities on Fremont Street. So we had essentially three different events. We had the race, we had qualifying, and we had that all spread out over the course of 4 or 5 days. And like I said, LiveU is the quarterback on that, because for qualifying we had a LiveU tethered to a 600. We had the 300 mounted in a trophy truck, which is the unlimited truck, and class truck, and with a Marshall POV. Then transitioned to Fremont, did all those hits, and then went into race mode. So this thing's a beast. And everything went off seamless. And same thing, circling back at qualifying, not only we have the drone, but we also had a heli with a gimbal and a 600.
Very cool. So Jason, I got to ask, you guys obviously have a lot of experience doing this. What advice would you give to other production companies looking to pull off something as incredible and dynamic as the Mint 400?
I call people like us that have done the homework. The big thing is you just got to do your homework. And we, Lonnie Peralta and I, we took a Polaris UTV out. We had a the extender mounted on the top of the roll cage, and we had a 600 and 300, and we spent 2 days driving around the entire course and looking at it from a cinematic standpoint as well as a coverage standpoint. Okay, where do we want to put a camera? And then testing cell coverage, because up the I-15 corridor, you have good cell coverage. Once you drift 2 miles either way, it drops off hard. And then, like I said, you've got 4,500 foot peaks, you got deep canyons where the course is going to, run through. And so we marked off probably somewhere between 45 and 60 locations on GPS, and did signal tests. And we had the server back in San Diego with Nate, our editor, back there, and we'd ping him on the cell or call him on our millimeter microwave connected radios and say, okay, we're here, what do you see? And then he'd pull it up, see how many bars we got, how many carriers, and then would screenshot it, so that way when we came back, we were able to debrief and say, okay, here's our wish list where we want to be. Here's what the tech side of it's saying that's going to be a go or no go, or maybe a little iffy. And so we bake that into our plan. So anytime you're doing an event like this is your pre-production and your scouting, and especially tech scouting, that's almost more important than your planning for a race day, because your plan for race day is going to go south if you don't do that homework.
Awesome. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us this evening on the LiveU Sports Show. Really a pleasure, and can't wait to see what you guys pull off next year.
Cheers. Can't wait. And we've got a bunch in store for that. So we're already planning now.
Well, I, for one, am looking forward to watching the Mint 400 next year. I mean, who doesn't want to watch a 1,000 horsepower, $800,000 vehicle drive through the desert at over 100 miles an hour? Great stuff. Shifting gears now, let's get into our remotely interesting segment. And joining me now on the sports show is our very own Luis De La Rosa. Good evening, Luis. How are you this evening?
I am doing very well. Chris, how are you?
Awesome. So, Luis, I want to talk about the second most important thing behind audio, tally. Can we talk a little bit about how LiveU has integrated tally systems?
Sure. So the LiveU tally enables your field crews to immediately know when they're live on air. They get instant cue signaling that the camera that they're looking at is live. So the way this works, the LiveU encoders transmit back to LiveU servers, and you have a GPIO device connected to that server, which is feeding the switcher. So it's a very simple, very easy to operate, and useful for multi-camera remote productions. So the tally light goes connected to the encoder, the LU600, the LU800, 610, or 300. So when the switcher switches the feed, that camera, the light will go red when you're live on air. When you're not, when it's in preview, it's green. So back in studio, you have a GPIO device, you're saying connected to a LiveU server, and then depending on which switcher, which mixer you're using, you're connecting back to that GPIO device via DB25 connector, maybe with some Phoenix connectors, sending signal back to the field.
Now, just so everyone understands that we actually practice what we preach here on the LiveU Sports Show, we're using our own tally solution tonight. We've got this rigged up where I have a camera behind my camera, and you can see right now we're using that camera to shoot me, so I can see that the light on my actual program camera is green. Now, when James takes that camera live on air, as he just did there, that light goes red, and I know exactly which camera to look at. So, Luis, can you talk to why tally is so important for sports broadcasters?
Sure, absolutely. So using LiveU tally allows for smoother broadcasts and fewer mistakes on air. For example, if you're doing a remote pre or post game show and you're using multiple cameras, you got a wide angle, you got a tight shot, whichever shot is live, it's on air, the talent will see that red light. It gives them that cue that they can look at that camera as opposed to talking in one direction and the camera that's live is off to the side. So this makes it look easier. It's a more professional show.
Awesome. And in order to maintain that level of professionalism, this is obviously very closely related to video return in terms of production assist tools. Can you talk about how the LiveU video return solution works?
Absolutely. So back, I guess, at MCR, you have your mixer, your production switcher. You're sending program back to the video return server. The video return server is a dual input server. You can send, again, program or teleprompter. So the field crew can be receiving teleprompter. They can read they can see what's on air, and again, your talent they can be queued up. You can pull video return from an LU800, from LU600, a 610, a 3. You have the LU Control app as well. So it's a mobile app that'll run on Android or an iOS device, allowing for a much smoother remote show. So tally, video return are crucial when you have a multi-camera remote production.
Awesome. Louis, thank you so much for joining us here on the Sports Show. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure, Chris. See you soon, buddy.
See you soon. And that, my friends, is going to do it for this edition of the LiveU Sports Show. A quick program note, we are now on an every other Wednesday schedule, so we'll see you right here in 2 weeks on Facebook Live at 8 Eastern. Check out our Facebook page for more information on our guest as well as our remotely interesting segment. From all of us here at LiveU, I'm Chris Perry. Good night.
Thanks for watching the LiveU Sports Show.